Good morning and welcome back to Valley News Now. I'm Adam Shelf and I'm joined by Matthew Carlson. Matthew, thank you so much. Great to see you again.
Thanks for having me here.
Quick question. First, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was fantastic. My family's in town. Everybody came over to our house and we had a great time.
Awesome. And it kind of leads into what we're talking about today, because a lot of people did travel for Thanksgiving. A lot of people traveling this time of year, traveling for Christmas, and a very fitting topic scheduled for today. We're talking about winter safety. A lot of things go into that, having a winter survival tip. We'll get into a little bit of advice and get your perspective as a mechanic on some of the common issues you see. Then, of course, we'll play the video. Jourden and Kevin kind of going through some things on this week's episode. Now, Matt, I want to just kind of jump right into it. As I mentioned, being a mechanic, what are some of those things that you see a lot of this time of year?
Well, the big one, as the temperature drops, suddenly battery problems arise, because a mediocre battery that maybe has half of its life left in it or half of its strength left in it will start a car fine all summer long. Then when it gets cold out, it doesn't work anymore. So you can catch that ahead of time by having your battery tested, and we can test the capacity of it. But sometimes it surprises people and they go out there. We've had some 0-degree mornings, and you go out there and all of a sudden your car doesn't start. So we see that one a lot. The other one we're seeing a lot of is kind of indirect, a lot of suspension issues that we're seeing, and it's because people's tires aren't very good, so they're hitting curbs.
Oh, okay.
And so what happens a lot is people, again, summertime, tires aren't pushed to their limit as much. Lower tread depth still works fine. Then you get into winter, all of a sudden you're sliding on a road, you didn't realize how slippery it was, you hit a curb, and then damage comes from hitting that curb.
Makes sense. Now, I wanted to ask you about something I always hear, and that is that you want to keep a certain amount of gas in your car. I've heard that you want to keep, in the winter months, your gas tank at least half full.
Yeah, so there's there's two concepts on that. One is we want to make sure we aren't getting liquid, like water, in the fuel, and so we don't want to let it run low, so we get that. That isn't as much of an issue now that we have so much ethanol in the gas. That actually solves our water problem.
Okay.
But the real thing is safety. If you're running on a low tank of gas and suddenly you get stuck, you need to be able to keep that car on for heat and to be able to get out. And so the big thing is keep your tank full, or at least half full, so that if you're going somewhere and you do get stuck, you do have an accident or something like that, you're able to keep the car running and stay warm in it until somebody's able to come and help you.
Okay, very good. Sounds like some great advice. And let's get into just a few more important reminders before we get rolling on the videos. I know that you brought up a few of them before we got started here.
So a few of the things we really just want to focus on, making sure you've got your winter safety kit ready to go, right? Do we have that? Do we have what we want in it, just in case? Because we always got to think of that worst case scenario before we're traveling. Checking our tires, are they good? Are they aired up properly? Are our fluids good on the car? Is our battery good? I mean, these are the key things that we really want to focus on.
Okay, very good. Well, without further ado, Matt, let's go ahead and get this played, and then we'll talk a little bit more in detail about some of the things that are discussed in this week's episode of TJ's Mechanic Mondays. Go ahead and play that for you.
Hi, I'm T.
And I'm Jay.
And this is TJ's Mechanic Mondays. We all know life moves fast, and you never know when car trouble might hit.
And that's why we've teamed up with Kevin at Fix It Forward here in Fargo for a monthly segment aimed to keep you and your car rolling through the valley. On this month's episode, we're here to help you properly prepare for those Midwest winters. You can build a kit with us that will keep you chugging through the ice and snow.
So hop in! TJ's Mechanic Mondays starts right now.
All right, Kevin, so let's talk winter. What are some things you should keep in your car during these winter months here in the Midwest?
Well, you definitely want to keep a winter survival kit, which can include various items. You want to have some nutrition, some blankets, some maybe extra socks, mittens, and maybe an extra pair of boots.
And there's a million kits out there that you can buy at the store. Is it better to get one of those, or should you make your own?
It depends on the needs that you may have. Definitely, if you have children, you might want to make your own to have a little more stock in there for them if you do get stranded in the wintertime.
So not everyone has a garage here in the Midwest. We get a lot of snow. The ice builds up on those windshields. What are some safe ways to get that pesky ice off?
The safest way is to actually let your engine warm up for about 10 to 15 minutes and let the vehicle itself defrost the ice. Another way is there are some washer fluids out there that are de-icing washer fluids. You can also use that to try to melt some of the ice and do it that way.
What are some ways that you should not use to get that ice off?
Well, you definitely do not want to use hot boiling water on your windshield because that will crack your windshield and cause further damage and further expense.
And then say you get stuck in one of those snow drifts in the middle of the street. How can you yourself get out of that situation?
Well, hopefully part of your winter survival kit, you have a scoop shovel or a snow shovel in your trunk. Hopefully you can dig yourself out or have a couple buddies come over and help you push yourself out in a safe manner, or call the professionals, call a tow truck, and they can also assist you.
In the winter, things can go wrong. Your battery can die. Is it safe to jump your battery in the middle of winter?
You can use another vehicle. Make sure you hook up the battery cables correctly, red on red and black on black for negative, of course. You want to let that vehicle run for a little bit to get some charge into that vehicle that's stranded. And definitely do not want to use a hybrid vehicle to jump a conventional vehicle.
All right, Kevin. So in the winter, things can go wrong very quickly. What are some things that can go wrong with your car during these winter months in the Midwest?
A few different things. You want to make sure your antifreeze in your engine is good, so at least minus 32 Fahrenheit. Other things, you want to make sure you have good oil in your engine, and you want to make sure your tire pressure is at the manufacturer's specification.
Well, thank you for letting us into your shop, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
And as always, some great tips there. So I did have a few questions, and this is kind of crazy, but we talked about there's actually some misinformation out there. The point that was emphasized there is don't use the boiling water, but it sounds like there was even some fake videos saying use the boiling water.
You know, that's the problem with the internet now is there's a lot of prank videos out there, and there was a run of prank videos that was out last year and is coming back now about encouraging people how fast it is to defrost your windshield with hot water, just to try and trick people into doing it. So if people aren't aware that this is a prank, it'd be very easy to make a very costly mistake because it will shatter your windshield very quickly.
It sounds like a bad move.
Bad move.
Yeah, bad move all around. Safely pushing out a car. I feel like there's some subtopics here too, but just talking about the logistics of not just being the person who's behind the wheel, but the person who's maybe behind the car as well. How can people work as a team to safely get out of a situation like that?
Yeah, safety is pretty hard to hit. It's really difficult to make it safe because you're standing on clearly slippery ground because the car can't drive on it, and then you're trying to push, and that's something that we don't do. So you've got to be super, super careful. What we find is generally the best is if you shovel out in front of the tires so the car's not trying to drive out of anything, or at least can get a little runway, then rock the car gently back and forth.
Okay.
So that you're what you're trying to do is build a little bit of path in front of the tire and back behind the tire that isn't ice. And then when you're driving, try not to spin the tire. As soon as the tire starts spinning, you've lost traction. You want to stop and then back up and try and do that again. So we say to people they want to get out and they hit the gas really hard and start spinning the tires, and all they're doing is digging themselves into a hole.
Right.
You want to just try and drive gently. And a lot of times, by being real gentle like that, you can drive out of being stuck without even needing anybody to push you.
And that's exactly what I was going to talk about, digging yourself into a hole. I remember one of my first serious winters up in the northern part of the country. I didn't have a garage. I was living in Montana, and I parallel parked, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm parallel stuck.
Yeah. It happens pretty easily.
Yeah.
Especially when a plow goes by you and pushes the snow around your tires.
Yeah.
So now for you to go forward or backward, your car has to drive up onto the snow.
Right.
And it takes a lot of traction to do that.
Yeah. So what are the most important things to do to avoid getting that spin cycle, let's call it, where you're just stuck, and how can you make sure you don't get it worse? And in particularly, if you are in a situation where maybe you don't have anyone to help you.
The big thing is, if you know it's going to be a problem and you have a little shovel, taking a little bit of time to just take 6 inches of snow in front and behind the tire out will make things just go drastically easier, because that'll allow the car to get a little bit of momentum. And then it's all about being gentle. A lot of new cars, they have an ice mode on them or a slippery mode, and what they do is they just make the throttle a lot less sensitive to try and encourage people to not spin the tires. So as soon as you feel the tires start spinning, let off, back up and just work your way back and forth.
Okay, very good. Sounds like some good advice there. Last thing I want to touch on is, and this is something we've talked about with some of our other guests as well, but I'd love to get your input as someone who's regularly working on the mechanics of a vehicle. What are some of the more important safe driving tips that you can share with us?
Well, the big thing is, especially as we're getting used to the slippery roads, because we had a pretty nice fall up until a couple weeks ago, you want to make sure you know how slippery the roads are. They change very quickly. You know, one road can be fine because they salted it, and then you turn off to a side road and it hasn't been salted. But a lot of our modern cars with the all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, they accelerate from the light really well because they've got more traction. So then we get really confident thinking that the roads aren't as bad as they are. But the problem is those cars, and I drive an all-wheel drive vehicle myself, those cars may accelerate better from the light, but they don't stop any faster than the other car does.
Okay.
So it's very easy to not recognize how slippery the roads really are. Drive a little bit too fast, and a little too fast can easily be an accident.
Well, that's some great advice. Anything else you want to talk about before we let you get back to the shop?
You know, the one thing that they also commented on there that I thought was really interesting is hybrids. A lot of people are starting to drive hybrids now.
Actually, I meant to ask about that one.
And a lot of people are driving hybrids, and when somebody needs a jump start, you know, we grab our jumper cables. We do not want to be jumper starting off of hybrids because hybrids are unique. They don't have like our normal cars have a nice big battery that we've all seen, and that goes to a big starter, and that's what starts everything. On a hybrid, they don't have a big battery. They don't have a starter. They actually use the electric motor that drives the car to start the engine.
Okay.
So they use the high voltage battery to do that. And they have a very shockingly small battery that keeps all the electronics going on the car. And so you can't jump start cars with them because they don't have a big enough capacity battery to do that. And they have, because they don't have high current through there, there's a fuse in there that's really easy to blow. So if you try jump starting the car, you very easily could blow that fuse, and now your car isn't going to work either.
There you go. Awesome stuff. Thank you so much. Appreciate having you in the studio as always. And we'll have more rolling out. We got to make another trip to the shop coming up here.
Can't wait.
And we are very excited about it. Thanks once again. And everybody have a great day. We'll see you next time on TJ's Mechanic Mondays.